Good morning, my brothers and sisters here on Facebook, YouTube, and scattered across the four corners of the earth. This is Yaki coming back at you with another revelation in regards to what it was that my father has been dealing with me with for a few years. Just want to raise more awareness in regards to our errors and get us as close back to our Heavenly Father as possible in keeping His laws, statutes, and commandments. So with this one here, y'all been revealing to me about the calendar days and how we are in error when we say we are keeping a feast day or a Shabbat according to this calendar that we over here in the United States go according to. So I want to break that down for you guys a little bit as much as I can with the little information that I do have, in the many researches that I've been doing in regards to this. Again, it took about a couple years for me to get this understanding. This wisdom to teach me so that I may be able to gain the spirit of knowledge, of knowing, and the understanding of walking it out of what I know. So let's jump right into this, y'all. Before we do that, I do want to ask our Heavenly Father to bless us with His spirit of wisdom, His spirit of knowledge, and with all our getting His spirit of an understanding, so that we may be able to rightly divide His truth from the lies and snares that's put in the Bible and other books that belong in the Bible. Now let's jump right into it. All right, so this is the calendar year, the American calendar year, versus Yah's calendar year. So we're going to start with the American calendar. It's considered a Gregorian calendar, or it's called a Gregorian calendar. All right. This calendar, from what I've come to the understanding of, is used to space out leap years. Now we know what a leap year is. Every 4 years, there's an extra day added in the month of February, giving it 29 days versus 24 days on a regular calendar year, which makes the average year 365 come about 366. If we know on a regular calendar day is 365 days. On a leap year is 366 days, right? All right, so it's determined by the Earth's revolution around the sun, meaning this is the sun, this is the Earth. Revolution. Starting point, end point. So basically what they are telling you is that the sun sits still in one place and the Earth is what moves around, all right, around the sun. So it's also named after Pope Gregory VIII, if I'm not mistaken, who introduced it in October 1582 as a reformed or improved version of the Julian calendar, to bring the date for the celebration of Easter to the time of year in which it was celebrated when it was introduced by the early church. We're going to dab a little bit into that. All right? So we come to the understanding that the Gregorian calendar is a revised or improved version of a Julian calendar, which was set in motion beforehand. All right? So, what is it about Easter that this calendar is fixed on it? Let's do a little bit of research on that. All right? So I'm going to the ancient pagan origin of Easter. If you was to put this in your computer and look it up, you'll be able to find this topic that I'm reading from. All right? I'm going to try to read as much as I can with the little time frame that I have. But if my computer would stop doing extra stuff, I can get moving. All right. Easter is a festival and holiday celebrated by millions of people around the world who honor the resurrection of Jesus or Yehoshua for those of us who call ourselves awakened and don't want to change the narrative of the story of what's printed. Only thing we want to change is the name. Alright? From the dead, described in the New Testament as having occurred 3 days after the crucifixion at Calvary. It is also the day that children excitedly wait for the Easter bunny to arrive and deliver their treats of chocolate eggs. Alright? Moving right along, it says, Easter is a movable feast, which is chosen to correspond with the first Sunday following the full moon after the March equinox, and occurs in different dates around the world since Western churches use the Gregorian calendar, while Eastern churches use the Julian calendar. Alright, so the information that we are having, we're starting to find out. The Western hemisphere used the Gregorian calendar. Eastern hemisphere, where everything originates from what we're being told, use the Julian calendar. Alright? Now, let's fix on this little word, March equinox. Let's get a little bit of history on that for those who didn't pay attention in science, if that's something that was told during that time. March equinox, that's basically a point in time where the sun and the moon have an equal duration of its shine. So basically, however long the sun is out, for that period of time is the same time period of how long the moon is out. Alright? So basically what I'm saying is, there's a certain point in time on earth where the sun will have its time to shine. And when the sun set, the moon would have its time to shine. And both of them are equal. So what they're saying, another way they say it, how they would say it in their terminology, it's when the sun lines up with the Orion's belt. So you'll have an equal day of sunlight and an equal day of moonlight for that particular day. So what they're saying, after that day, Easter falls on the following Sunday. Alright? Let's move on. It says, most historians, including biblical scholars, agree that Easter was originally a pagan festival, according to the New Unger's Biblical Dictionary. The word Easter is of Saxon origin. Estra, the goddess of spring, in whose honor sacrifices were offered about Passover time each year. Well, what did we hear about Passover? In the Bible, right? Alright. By the 8th century, Anglo-Saxon had adopted the name to designate the celebration of Christ or Jesus, or Jesus / Yehoshua. Again, since we don't want to change the narrative of the story, we just want to change the name of the character of Christ's resurrection. However, even among those who maintain that Easter has pagan roots, there was some disagreement over which pagan tradition the festival emerged from. Here we will explore some of those perspectives. So they don't even argue that Easter has pagan origin, but what they are arguing about is which tradition it could have came from. The resurrection as a symbol of rebirth. One theory that has been put forth is that Easter, or Easter, E-A-S-T-R-E, or E-A-S-T-E-R, Easter, story of crucifixion and resurrection, is symbolic of rebirth and renewal and retells the cycle of the seasons, the death and return of the sun. According to some scholars, such as Dr. Tony Nugent, teacher of theology and religious studies at Seattle University and Presbyterian minister, the Easter story comes from the Sumerian legend of Tammuz, for those who know who Tammuz is, and his wife Inanna Ishtar. Now, if you want to know a little bit more background of who Tammuz and Ishtar is, I advise you to go do your research, because that's a whole different story, and I don't got that much time, so I'm not going to go into it. But let's just say it takes you back to Babylonian roots, all right? During the time of humanity was separated and given different languages during the time of Babel, according to the Bible. Babylon, when they was dispersed from trying to build that tower. All right? It says, the Easter story comes from the Sumerian legend of Tammuz, and his wife Inanna Ishtar, an epic myth called the Descent of Inanna, found inscribed on cuneiform clay tablets dating back to 2100 BC. When Tammuz dies, Ishtar is grief-stricken and follows him to the underworld. In the underworld, she enters through 7 gates, and her worldly attire is removed. Naked and bowed low, she is judged, killed, then hung on display. Does that sound like the same thing that happened to Yehoshua? Jesus, judged, persecuted, then hung on display. Just a little bit of tweaking of the story, right? But that's another topic y'all we'll get on later on down the line, how this Bible has pagan origins within it. So I be telling my brothers and my sisters, man, this Bible is not your history book. It might have your history in it, but it's not your history book because it's mixed and mingled. And what does the Bible say? A little leaven, leaveneth the whole lump, right? All right. But don't take my word for it. Do your own research. Moving right along. In her absence, the earth loses its fertility. Crops ceases to grow and animals stop reproducing. Unless something is done, all life on earth will end. After Inanna has been missing for 3 days, sounds like Jesus, don't it? Or Yehoshua. After Inanna has been missing for 3 days, her assistant goes to other gods for help. Finally, one of them, Enki, a name whom my brother used to talk to me about, as far as an Egyptian god, creates 2 creatures who carry the plant of life and water of life down to the underworld, sprinkling them on Inanna and Tammuz, or Ishtar and Tammuz, resurrecting them and giving them the power to return to the earth as the light of the sun for 6 months. After the 6 months are up, Tammuz returns to the underworld of the dead, remaining there for another 6 months, and Ishtar pursues him, prompting the water god to rescue them both. Thus were the cycles of winter, death, spring, life. Meaning, during the summertime, they rain. During the wintertime, they don't. Alright, moving right along. Dr. Nugent is quick to point out that drawing parallels between the story of Jesus, Yehoshua, and the epic of Inanna doesn't necessarily mean that there wasn't a real person, Jesus or Yehoshua, who was crucified, but rather that if there was, the story about it is structured and embellished in accordance with a pattern that was very ancient and widespread. Meaning, these stories about Tammuz and Inanna, these are things that was talked about or that was told before Yehoshua was coming. So he's saying basically he's not disputing or denying that Yehoshua, Yah's Messiah, didn't come. But what he's saying is, now let's think about this, my brothers and sisters, because what is it that the Bible is telling you? if you was to actually do your thorough studying and researching, his own peoples crucified him, put him to death. When they found out that he rose, right? What did they pay off the people who they put charge over watching over his tomb? He paid them to lie, right? Didn't they pay them to lie? To keep that under wraps so that no one would know that he actually rose from the dead. So, knowing these things, my brothers and sisters, this man is like, he's not denoting, or he's not disagreeing or saying that Yehoshua didn't come. What he's saying is the storyline of how they are telling you, or what they are telling you, could very well not be true, and they are telling you, or they are giving you their religious structure, or their folklore tales, or the tales of their gods, and got you worshiping their gods unknowingly. Remember, man, we can't discard the Council of Nicaea, period. We can't. Crafty counsel has been taken against the children of Israel, right? What nation of people you know that know when the children of Israel come back to their right standings and start worshiping their Heavenly Father in truth and in all honesty, and repent of their sins, that everything would be put back right, and that things being put back right would mean that their rule over that people, will come to an end. And not only that, Judgment Day. What people, put yourself in their shoes. Would you even give that nation of people their truth on a silver platter and say, here's your truth. Go worship your power to put everything back in its rightful perspective. Knowing that we are servants, knowing that you are a servant of the adversary who don't like you, who don't like that people. The reason why I say that is because if you was to do your thorough research and studying again, like if you was to dib and dab into these other books that was taken out of the Bible, like the Book of Jubilee, for instance, in this book, it says that he who created heaven and earth and everything therein, he chose a group of people to be his people. That's the 12 tribes of Israel, right? And then he turned around and said, over all the other nations, meaning it don't matter if you came from Abraham's lineage. If you're not from that 12 tribe, he said he put spirits and authority to lead you astray, to do contrary to. And in the same book, when Noah prayed to his Heavenly Father because his children was being led astray, after he was done praying, here come Mastema, another name for adversary or Satan, came and said, Father, don't get rid of all of the angels or all of the wicked spirits. Father won't have any of them to do my will, for they are created to lead astray. Which let you know, these peoples that are being led astray, according to the works and will of the adversary, not the works and will of your Heavenly Father. And what is it that the adversary has said? He said, I'm going to place my throne above the stars of heaven, and I'm going to be like the Most High. He didn't even want to worship the creation of man. So what makes you think that these people that's following Satan, that's worshiping Satan, is going to give you your truth on a silver platter? But that's veering off. Let's get back onto this calendar. Just wanted to put that out there. Ways of awareness. Alright, so Dr. Nugent points out that the story of Anana and Dumuzi is just, hold on, let me see. I'm sorry, I skipped over some stuff. Dr. Nugent is quick to point out that drawing parallels between the story of Jesus and Yehoshua and the epic of Inanna doesn't necessarily mean that there wasn't a real person, Yehoshua, who was crucified, but rather that if there was, the story about it is structured and embellished in accordance with a pattern that was very ancient and widespread. The Sumerian goddess Inanna is known outside of Mesopotamia by her Babylonian name, Ishtar. In ancient Canaan, Ishtar is known as Astarte, and her counterparts in the Greek and Roman pantheons are known as Aphrodite and Venus. In the fourth century, when Christians identified the exact site in Jerusalem where the empty tomb of Jesus, or Yahushua, had been located, they selected the spot where a temple of Aphrodite, Astarte, Ishtar, Inanna, stood. The temple was torn down, and the sole church of the Holy Sepulchre was built. The holiest church in the Christian world. Y'all hear this, right? So they're not going to give you your truth. They're going to give you what they want you to know, stuff that's going to cause you to worship their power. Let's move on. Dr. Nugent points out that the story of Inanna and Dumuzi is just one of the number of accounts of dying and rising gods that represent the cycle of the seasons and the stars. For example, the resurrection of Egyptian Horus, the story of Mithras, who was worshipped at springtime, and the tale of Dionysus, resurrected by his grandmother. Among those stories are prevailing themes of fertility, conception, renewal, descent into darkness, and the triumph of light over darkness, or good over evil. This is what your Gregorian calendar is fixed on in so many ways. A related perspective is that rather than being a representation of the story of Ishtar, Easter was originally a celebration of Eostre, E-O-S-T-R-E, goddess of spring, otherwise known as Ostara, O-S-T-A-R-A, Astra, A-U-S-T-R-A, and Istre, E-A-S-T-R-E. One of the most revered aspects of Ostara for both ancient and modern observers is a spirit of renewal. Celebrated at spring equinox on March 21st. So this is when, according to their calculation, this is when sun and the moon is supposed to have their equal share of light. Time, I should say. However much time that the sun is out, giving off its light, the moon will have that same equal time. So they're saying it's supposed to happen around the spring equinox is supposed to happen around March 21st. Ostara marks the day when light is equal to darkness and will continue to grow. Y'all hear that right? So, light and darkness is equal, but the sunlight continues to grow. That's during summertime. Time that we're in. Because what is it? During summertime you have a longer day, lesser night. During wintertime, you have a longer night, lesser day. All right. As the bringer of light after a long dark winter, the goddess was often depicted with the hare, an animal that represents the arrival of spring as well as the fertility of the seasons. Now here is where you're getting your Easter bunny from. All right. Celebrated, no problem. Here we go. According to Jacob Grimm's Deustche, D-E-U-T-S-C-H-E, Duce, mythology, the idea of resurrection was ingrained within the celebration of Ostara. Ostara Istre seems therefore to have been the divinity of the radiant dawn of offspring and light, a spectacle that brings joy and blessing, whose meaning could be easily adapted by the resurrection day of the Christian God, or the Christian's God. Most analysts of the origin of the word Easter, agree that it was named after Eostre, E-O-S-T-R-E, an ancient word meaning spring. Though many European languages use one form of another of the Latin name for Easter, Pascha, P-A-S-C-H-A, which is derived from the Hebrew Pesach, P-E-S-C-H. P-E-S-A-C-H, meaning Passover. So y'all see how this is starting to link to the Hebrew Passover, right? Easter and its connection to Passover. Let's go into that a little bit. Easter is associated with the Jewish festival of Passover through its symbolism and meaning, as well as its position in the calendar. Some early Christians choose to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus on the same date as Passover, which reflects Easter having entered Christianity during its earliest Jewish periods. Evidence of a more developed Christian festival of Easter emerged around the mid-2nd century. Keep that in mind. Because I'm going to pause right there. And I want to read something else to y'all. Alright? This one right here, this is separation of Easter's computation. Computation meaning calculation from the Jewish calendar. Alright? The Feast of Easter is linked to the Jewish Passover and Feast of Unleavened Bread as Christians believe that the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus occurred at the time of those observances. As early as Pope Sextus I, some Christians have set Easter to a Sunday in the lunar month of Nisan. Lunar month. Now here, what's lunar? All right. Lunar means of the moon. Solar means of the sun. All right. If you was to split it in half, if you was to count the days of the sun and count the days of the moon throughout a year, this is how you would get your solar calendar and your lunar calendar, because you're going according to the day and according to the moon. All right. Now I want to point out something to y'all real quick. All right. Hebrew calendar, from what I'm hearing, or from what I found out, in the lunar solar Hebrew calendar, Adar Aleph, A-D-A-R-A-L-E-P-H, a 13th lunar month is added 7 times every 19 years to keep its calendar from drifting through the seasons. So, the American Gregorian calendar has a day added every 4 years. According to the Hebrew calendar, Adar Aleph is a 13th month, or it's an extra month being added every 7 months. 7 times every 19 months. Alright? Let's take a look at something else. Nisan. That word Nisan. Now, I think I went past it. No, I didn't. That word Nisan is found in several occasions, several places in the scriptures. Nisan, or N-I-S-S-A-N, however you pronounce that. On the Assyrian calendar, it is the first month of the year. On the Hebrew calendar, it is the first month of the year, of the ecclesiastical year, and the 7th month of the civil year. Okay? Also, it's the 8th month on a leap year. Remember, because it's an extra month added in. Alright? The name of the month, or Nisan, the name of Nisan is of Assyrian Babylonian origin. In the Torah, it is called the month of Aviv. Let's check this out. Exodus chapter 12. That's verse 1 through 14. I'm going to try to hurry up and read through this. And Yah spoke to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. Y'all hear that right? The beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. And if the house be too little for the lamb, let him and the neighbors next to his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and you shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening, during the nighttime. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper doorpost of the house wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread. You see, he said, and they shall eat the flesh in that night. Alright? And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire his head with his legs, and with the puritans thereof. And ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remains of it until the morning you shall burn it with fire. And thus shall you eat it, with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. It is Yah's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am Yah, and the blood shall be to you for a token upon the house where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast unto me. Throughout your generations, you shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. Alright? Passover, first month. And Passover is supposed to happen on the 14th day. Alright, chapter 13, the same book, Exodus. Check this out. I'm just going to read a small portion. And Yah spoken to Moses, saying, Sanctify unto me all the firstborn whatsoever opens the womb among the children of Israel, both man and of the beast in his mind. And Moses said unto the people, Remember this day in which you came out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, for by strength of hand Yah brought you out from this place. There shall no leavened bread be seen. This day came you out in the month of Abib. Alright. Hope y'all caught that. Let's keep on reading. To determine which lunar month was to be designated as Nisan, Christians relied on the Jewish community. By the later 3rd century, some Christians began to express dissatisfaction with what they took to be the disorderly state of the Jewish calendar. They argued that contemporary Jews were identifying the wrong lunar month or the wrong moon calendar of the moon month was the month of Nisan, choosing a month whose 14th day fell before the spring equinox, meaning, remember, spring equinox, even time for the sun being out, even time for the moon being out. And as we just got through reading, according to the scriptures, since we don't want to change the narrative of the story for us awakened people, the month of Abib was the first day of the month, was the first month of the year. And on the 14th day of the month was when the Passover was supposed to be held. And remember, Easter is to go hand in hand with the Passover. So, these Christians are basically saying that the Jewish peoples, their calendars start to put the Passover on on the 14th day of a month that came before the spring equinox, or before the first month of the year. And they wasn't agreeing with that. But let's read along. All right. They argue that, we read that already. Let me scroll down. Christians, these thinkers argued, should abandon the custom of relying on the Jewish informants and instead do their own computations to determine which month should be styled Nisan, setting Easter within its independently computed Christian Nisan, which would always locate the festival after the equinox. Now hear this, right? Now remember, what was this Gregorian calendar created for? It was an reformed or improved version of the Julian calendar to bring the date for the celebration of Easter to the time of year in which it was celebrated when it was introduced by the early church. So they're trying to get it back to that day where it's supposed to happen on the 14th day of the month, of the first month, or of the month, the 14th day of the month that the spring equinox was to occur. Let's put it that way. Because we know, according to this scripture, according to this Gregorian calendar, the first day of the year, or the first month of the year is what? January? And that's during the winter time. But the Bible says the first month of the year is supposed to happen on the spring equinox. But we'll get into that too. I'll show you that, y'all willing, if I have time. But check this out. Let's keep reading because I don't have that much time. I want y'all to get this. All right. They justified this break with tradition by arguing that it was in fact the contemporary Jewish calendar that had broken with tradition by ignoring the equinox, and that in former times the 14th of Nisan had never preceded the equinox. Others felt that the customary practice of reliance on the Jewish calendar should continue even if the Jewish computations were in error from a Christian point of view. The controversy between those who argue for independent computations, remember computations mean calculation, and those who argue for continued reliance on the Jewish calendar was formally resolved by the council. See, they didn't put Nicaea after that, right? Why? Because when you do your thorough research and studying on this stuff, you will find out that the Council of Nicaea is only a 2-part form. But there's actually 5 that's missing. It was 7 councils in all in regards of this. So when you say the Council of Nicaea, you're only getting a portion of what you should be understanding in regards of what the council took place and what it was all about. All right. The controversy between those who argue for independent computations or calculations and those who argue for continued reliance on the Jewish calendar was formally resolved by the council, which endorsed the independent procedure that had been in use for some time at Rome and Alexandria. So what they're going to tell you now is that during Rome and Alexandria, they had already had the feast, or the feast of Passover, however way they celebrated it. It was already set on a Sunday. Easter was henceforward to be a Sunday in a lunar month chosen according to the Christian criteria. In effect, a Christian Nisan, not in the month of Nisan as defined by Jews. Those who argue for continued reliance on the Jewish calendar, called Protophassites, Protopaschites, by later historians, were urged to come around to the majority position. That they did not all immediately do, so is revealed. So is revealed by the existence of sermons, canons, and tracts written against the Protophassites practice in the later 4th century. Those two rules, independence of Jewish calendar and worldwide uniformity, were the only rules for Easter explicitly laid down by the council. No details for the computation or calculations were specified. These were worked out in practice and process that took centuries and generated a number of controversies. In particular, the council did not decree that Easter must fall on Sunday. This was already the practice almost everywhere. Nor did the council decree that Easter must never coincide with Nisan 14, the first day of the unleavened bread, now commonly called Passover, in the Hebrew calendar. By endorsing the move to independent computations or calculations, the council has separated Easter's computation or calculation from all dependence, positive or negative in the Jewish calendar. The Zonar's proviso, I'm not sure what that is, the claim that Easter must always follow Nisan 14 in the Hebrew calendar was not formulated until after some centuries. By that time, the accumulation of errors in the Julian solar and lunar calendars had made it the de facto state of affairs that Julian Easter always followed Hebrew Nisan 14. So they basically said the Julian calendar always stayed intact with the Hebrew calendar. And by them knowing that, they was like, nah, because it's going to end up making the Easter festival, come a month before the spring equinox. So here it is, where remember, the Gregorian calendar is a revised or a reformed or a renewed version of the Julian calendar. Let's go back here, y'all, because we're still working on this Gregorian calendar. Now that we got a little bit of information of the Nisan, check this out. We're going back to the pagan origin of Easter. In 325 AD, the first council, Constantine convened a meeting of Christian leaders to resolve important disputes at the Council of Nicaea. Since the church believed that the resurrection took place on a Sunday, the council determined that Easter should always fall on the first Sunday after the first full moon following the vernal equinox. Vernal equinox is, again, another way of saying spring equinox or March equinox. Remember, sun out for a certain time period, moon out for the same time period as the sun. Equal time shared for the sun and the moon to shine on the earth. While there were distinct differences between the celebrations of Passover and Easter, both festivals celebrate rebirth in Christianity through the resurrection of Jesus, Yahushua, and in Jewish traditions through the liberation of the Israelites from slavery. So for my brothers who wanna keep the scriptures, the storyline intact the same, you got to understand, my brothers, Yah said for these things to be a memorial or a remembrance, and he also said for us to teach our children these things, because if you would have kept reading on in the, chapter 13 of Exodus, you would have heard him say, look, you teach your children why we do these, why this Passover was done. It had nothing to do with no rebirth and regenerate or resurrection of no Yehoshua or Jesus. It all had to do with us being liberated, being freed, redeemed from slavery. Let me see something here. Because now it's going to start going into the egg and stuff and all that, you know. I really don't get too much about the eggs. Y'all want to read that, y'all can continue to read on, alright? But I want to skip down some. I want to go right here. While many of the pagan customs associated with the celebration of springs were at one stage practiced alongside Christian Easter traditions, they eventually came to be absorbed within Christianity as symbols of the resurrection of Jesus slash Yehoshua. Since we don't want to change the narrative of the story, my brothers and sisters, the First Council of Nicaea 325 AD established the date of Easter as the first Sunday after the full moon, the fiscal full moon, following the March equinox, where it is observed as a religious holiday commemorating the resurrection of Jesus Christ, or the time for families in the northern hemisphere to enjoy the coming of spring and celebrate with eggs, decorating, and Easter bunnies. The celebration of Easter still remains the same spirit of rebirth and renewal as it has for thousands of years, meaning that you're still practicing pagan origins. It don't matter how you want to look at it. You can try to revise it all you want, because that's basically what they are doing to you. They are revising it to keep it under wraps so that you won't know that you're actually practicing pagan rituals. All right? So, this is what your Gregorian calendar is based off of. It's fixed on trying to keep the Passover or Easter fixed on a certain day. The first full moon after the spring or March equinox. Alright? That's your Gregorian calendar, my brothers and sisters. 365 days in a year, and every 4 years it has a leap year. Alright? Let's take a look at some things, man. Do a little bit of a recap real quick. It's named after Roman Catholic Church Pope Gregory VIII, introduced in October 1582. It was a reformed or improved version of the Julian calendar. It's also a solar calendar because it goes according to the sun. It has 365 days in a year. Every 4 years it is considered a leap year, which adds an extra day to the month of February, giving it 29 days instead of 28 days in a normal year. Leap year is used to keep the calendar synchronized with the astronomical or seasonal year. Basically, remember, Earth, Sun. Starting at one point, going around, and ending at that same point. That's what they're saying. The full complete circle of completion of the sun or the moon going around of the earth going around the sun is what they're calculating. All right. This calendar spaces out leap years to approximate the tropical year that is determined by the Earth's revolution or journey around the sun, to bring the date for the celebration of Easter to the time of year it was celebrated when it was introduced by the early church, the first Sunday on or after the vernal equinox. We've also learned that the Hebrew calendar is called Adar Aleph. It's a lunar solar calendar because it not only goes according to the sun but to the moon as well. It computes or it calculates the phase of the sunlit portion of the moon and the time of the tropical year. It will give an indication of the seasons if viewed as a tropical year. It also will predict the constellation near which the full moon will occur if viewed as a solar or sidereal year. And also it's an extra month that's added on a leap year. Alright? You will find this stuff out when you do your studying and research. Now for a sidereal, yeah, let me see this. Let me get back over there to that. I know it's in here somewhere. Let's not even worry about it, my brothers and sisters. Y'all willing to do season, I'll bring it to you. But I do want to do this though. Alright? About the Council of Nicaea. The 4th century is determined is the time period which lasted from 300 AD to 400 AD. The first Council of Nicaea was held in 325 AD, right? Alright. During the 4th century. The second century, the second council, the first council of Constantinople, occurred in 381 AD, which is 381 AD, which is still in that 4th century. All right, the third council of Ephesus, occurred in 431 AD during the 5th century, which time period is from 401 AD to 500 AD. The fourth council of Chalcedon, occurred in 451 AD. The fifth council, second council of Constantinople, occurred in 553 AD during the 6th century, whose time period was from 501 AD to 600 AD. The sixth council, which is the third council of Constantinople, occurred from 680 AD to 681 AD during the 7th century, which time period is from 601 AD to 700 AD. The seventh council, which is the second council of Nicaea, occurred in 787 AD during the 8th century, which time period is from 701 BC to 800 BC. Most of the councils took place during the period of the Dark Ages or fall of the Roman Empire. In case y'all didn't know that. Alright? That's your Gregorian calendar. 365 days, every leap year, 366 days. And it's fixed on keeping the Easter, the celebration or the feast of Easter on the first Sunday after the spring equinox. All right. Now, what I'm gonna do, because I know this thing is gonna shut down on me, which I hope it. That's one thing I hate. But what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna stop this right here so I can save it in. And I want y'all to tune in to the next one. There's going to be 2 parts to it. Alright? So, when you get the chance, check out the other part. The other part is going to be talking about Yah's calendar. So you can see the difference between the Gregorian calendar and Yah's calendar. Alright? Shalom.